I can be loud, but our technology may not thank us. Good morning, my name is Amy Collins. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a commissioned lay minister and one of today's service leaders here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland. We acknowledge that we're gathering on the original lands of the Erie and of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabeg peoples, also known as the Three Fires Council. We recognize the need to learn more about these complex and sometimes painful histories, to care for the land we inhabit, and to show respect for the diverse people and cultures who preceded us, as well as those that are here now. I bid you welcome whether you're here in person or joining us virtually, live, or at a later date. We are a pluralist and covenantal community. We're humanist, pagan, Jewish, Buddhist, Christian, atheist, agnostic, and some of us resist and reject all of those labels. We define family in many and diverse ways, by birth and by choice, and many of us claim this community as an extended family of sorts. We represent a continuum of gender and sexuality. We are neurodiverse and neurotypical. We have visible and invisible financial, racial, and cultural differences, health, and ability realities. As a covenantal community, we coexist with this range of beliefs and identities because we agree to respect and care for one another and make room for one another. We are also imperfect in our sincere and committed efforts to make room for all of these differences. Our covenant is something we often read aloud as our chalice lighting because it's aspirational and worthy of reminding ourselves of each week. If you're just discovering us and you want to learn more or hear from us, fill out one of the guest cards in the pew rack and put it in the offering plate later in the service. If you're with us online, you can visit our website at uucleveland.org and you'll see there a way to reach out to us as well. Please take a moment now to silence your electronic devices or put them in worship mode. Welcome to our precious, beloved, aspirational, flawed, and magnificent community. Our chalice lighter this morning is Glenn Wagner, who is our Capital Campaign Director. He will be visible and participating in some of the focus groups that hopefully all of you will find one that works in your schedule to participate in. And if you would join me in reading our chalice lighting words on the yellow card in your pew rack. We cultivate trust with one another by celebrating differences, honoring boundaries, and offering compassion and care. We listen to each other deeply with curiosity and wonder. We speak for ourselves without need to defend ourselves or persuade each other. We create safe and brave space for healthy conflict, creativity, and fun. We reconcile through forgiving and making amends when we hurt one another.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Randy Partain. My pronouns are they, them, and I am delighted to be with you in worship today, whether you are here in person or joining us online. And I do look forward to introducing Glenn Wagner a little more fully to you all in the potluck that we have after the service. If you did not know that there was a potluck after the service today and did not bring any food, you are still welcome to join us for the potluck after the service today. I'm sure there will be plenty for everyone. I invite you to hear these words from Thich Nhat Hanh as we prepare for worship today. We are very good at preparing to live, but not very good at living. We know how to sacrifice 10 years for a diploma. We are willing to work very hard to get a job, a car, a house, and so on. But we have difficulty remembering that we are alive in the present moment, the only moment there is for us to be alive. In the West, we are very goal-oriented. We know where we want to go, and we are very directed in getting there. This may be useful, but we often forget to enjoy ourselves along the route. So may we embrace this time to be en route together in this moment, alive with one another in beloved community. We are going to sing together hymn number 352, Find a Stillness, that's in the gray hymnal. And before we do that, I invite you to take a moment to turn to the people around you and let them know we create safe space here together. We have been trying something a little different with our Joys and Concerns stones and inviting people to come into the space with some centering music and to place a stone in the water if you want to acknowledge any joys or concerns that you bring into the space with you. And of course, if you're joining online, you are welcome to put any joys or concerns you want to share with the congregation in the comments. And we have a book here if there are things you want to share with the congregation. And I can read from those. I also know that there are not maybe as many stones in the water as there were when we were processing. So I'm making a mental note of that. But I invite you to enter into a time of prayer or meditation or reflection now, as we just name that we bring an abundance of things into this space with us. We bring gratitude for successful surgery for Martin and for Martin's ongoing recovery. someone dear to us is in a time where good life choices are crucial. And so we pray for their clarity of vision to make the right choices. We lift up prayers for a young woman diagnosed with breast cancer and for her husband and brother-in-law. And in addition to these personal concerns and things that we are so closely connected with, we carry the weight of concerns in the larger world. We may wonder why the tragedy of one person and their family gains so much of our attention when thousands continue to be killed in other parts of the world with nary a thought. But maybe we cannot hold all of that. Maybe the numbers are too big for our hearts. And so for those concerns that are closest to us and for those things that we don't know how to hold, we ask that this community might be a safe container so that we find ways to name the things that weigh on us and to name the things that lift us up, the things that we celebrate, the things that brighten our lives, small things that might seem insignificant. May we name them for one another in this place so that in the sharing of all of our burdens, they become lessened. And in the sharing of all of our joys, they become magnified. They become magnified. Amen. And blessed be. I did not put it in the joy and concern book, but I am a little sad today because I was going to show you my kite, and all I have is a kite string. I have my kite tied up in the front yard, and I don't know what happened to it. I can imagine what happened to it, though. I have some ideas about what happened to my kite. I don't know if you might help, though, because you are smarter than I am. You might know what happened to my kite. Do you have some thoughts? It was just tied up there in my front yard, waiting. I walked away for just a moment. I think what happened is a deer ate it. I think a deer ate my kite. I'm pretty sure. But then I have other ideas, too. Can you think of anything that might have happened? If you were to tell the story of my kite, someone took it to play with it and forgot to return it. That's a very generous story about the person who stole my kite. That's what I'm hearing. It got caught in a tree and I didn't look up. I should have looked up. See, that's my fault. I should have done something different. Yes? A breeze maybe carried it away. It just got caught in the wind. I didn't affix it safely enough. Yeah, that probably sounds like my fault too. Maybe if it's caught in a tree, I could go and still find it. Maybe that is the way that I can tell that story. If it's caught in the tree, I can still go get it. Was there somebody else that had an idea of what must have happened to my kite? The wind thought it needed it more than me. I love it when we deify the elements.
You took it for a flight while you were sleepwalking.
I took it for a flight while I was sleepwalking. This is a problem that I need to address in my life for sure.
It went back in time and Benjamin Franklin found it.
It went back in time. Benjamin Franklin got my kite, and that's the only reason we have electricity today is because of my kite. A dog took it. Yeah, definitely.
A large bird thought it was a fish.
A large bird thought my kite was a fish. Just right there, easy pickings. We are really great at telling stories. We are really great at making things up when we don't know. And sometimes, even when we learn something, we might still think that the story we told first is true because it just feels that way. And so I invite you to think about the stories that you tell. If your kite goes missing, or if your friend doesn't write back to you very quickly, or if somebody doesn't come to your party, or something. If somebody laughs when you walk in the room, who knows what that's about? So are the stories that we tell empowering to us? Are the stories that we tell things that help us show up the way we want to? Do the stories that we tell help us to be the embodiment of liberating love in the world? Or do the stories that we tell pull us down and take us away from our values and make us think that there's something wrong with us or other people? It's not very nice for me to think that somebody just stole my kite without knowing, but I might think that about other people. It's not very nice to me to think that I really, really messed up by doing something bad by walking away from my kite, but I can do that to myself too. So I just invite you to think about the stories you tell and whether they help you or get in your way. And when I get home, I'm going to look in the tree for my kite.
Greater Cleveland Congregations, GCC, is a nonpartisan, multiracial, multi-faith group of people working together to build power for social justice. Focus areas for GCC efforts include voter engagement, criminal justice, health equity, gun safety, and economic democracy. UUCC is one of 3 Cleveland area UU congregations and 35 plus religious or spiritual communities and community partners that work together to support efforts in these focus areas. You may recall periodic calls to show up for various events in person to help get out the vote or make a stand to end gun violence or otherwise seek to improve a broken criminal justice system. Today you have an opportunity to provide financial support to fuel these ongoing meaningful efforts without getting out of your seat. Please give generously within your means. You can place an offering, cash, or check made payable to UCC in the collection plate as it's passed, and you can also use our Cash App, $UUCC 44122, and please indicate in the memo line today's date and our plate recipient, GCC. Thanks in advance.
Does the world say that you don't look the right way? Does the world say that you're just not enough? Does the world say that you're not in the right spot? When it wants you there but not here, and tells you all the things you are not. Well, I've been there too. It's hard to shut my ears to the noise. Yes, I've been there.
Our reading is an excerpt from A Gospel of Hope, Walter Brueggemann. It is the command of Jesus that we not worry as the world worries in ways that make us crazy or mean or angry or hateful or quarrelsome. It is a command spoken by Jesus, who himself is unanxious and unflappable. Indeed, it's difficult to imagine Jesus being anxious. He is unafraid before the Roman governor at his trial, unflappable before the high priest on his dread-filled Thursday inquisition, unworried when the storm rages, completely at peace even in the ferocious storm on the Sea of Galilee. He is unafraid, unanxious, not worried. And he invites his disciples to stay close to him and to share his unanxious presence. Every community now is worried because the old ways do not work anymore. All around the local community is fear, a fear that keeps being fed by the fearful. But the church speaks another word in such a context. It is a word of preaching and living, of witnessing and acting, that we are unafraid and we invite the world to be unafraid with us. The truth is that frightened people will never turn the world because they use too much energy on the protection of self. But what the Spirit does is visit our lives, our persons, our bodies, our imagination, our money with freedom, so that we are unafraid in the world, able to live differently, not needing to control, not needing to dominate, not needing to accumulate, not driven by anxiety.
Easy for Walter Brueggemann to talk about Jesus not being anxious. What did Jesus have to worry about after all, right? A lot of our heroes that we tell stories about can be unanxious because they are in control. They have all the power that they need to resolve any situation. So what do they have to be anxious about? What do they have to worry about? And I think part of us might be convinced that being free of anxiety is a consequence of being completely safe. That if we just make sure that we are completely safe, we can be free of anxiety. We operate on an autopilot that we've talked about over the course of the summer that in many ways was created to keep us feeling safe. We created that promise to ourselves at a time when we were not feeling safe, at a time where maybe our needs were not met completely, and we made a promise to ourselves, I will be this way, or I will do this thing so that I feel safe, lovable, acceptable, whatever it is that we needed. And then we operate on that. And if our autopilot is the vehicle that takes us where we don't want to go, anxiety is the fuel that makes the trip possible. And that trip doesn't lead us toward shalom, wholeness, liberating love. It doesn't lead us toward that vision that we have for the world. But what are we talking about even when we talk about anxiety? We've talked about anxiety a little bit, but sometimes we get confused because we think big A, anxiety diagnosis, I need to go get a prescription for this, and that exists and it's a real thing. But all of us carry around some anxiety. Anxiety is the intense emotional energy that's activated anytime we perceive a threat. Anytime we perceive a threat of any kind, we have a biochemical reaction. And that biochemical reaction operates without consulting our thinking processes. It actually bypasses our thinking processes. When we feel threatened, the brain kicks off a series of chemical secretions that allow us to react instantaneously without having to stop and think. In fact, we don't even start thinking for 7 to 9 seconds until after those chemical processes have kicked in. 7 to 9 seconds is a long time. I can do a lot of things I will later regret in 7 to 9 seconds. So when we feel a sense of threat, we might react in a lot of different ways. We might react with worry or nervousness, but we also might get angry. We might feel depressed. We might feel elated. We might feel terrified. We might distance ourselves. There's all kinds of things that we might do. And as long as we're talking about definitions, there are two kinds of anxiety, and we should name that because some anxiety is there for a reason. It's called acute anxiety. It's in the moment. Our brains don't distinguish between the different kinds of anxiety, but acute anxiety, there's a reason for it. The child is in the street, the house is on fire, your brain bypasses your prefrontal cortex and processes the threat in a nanosecond, and you leap into action and you solve the problem before you even had a chance to think through all the strategic options. You don't say, what would be the best approach to get the child out of the street? In what way could I coax the child toward me and perhaps not put myself in harm? You just do it. You do the thing, you take care of the problem, and then once the threat is resolved, your brain goes back to a calmer state. It's really helpful to be anxious when there is a real threat. But there's another kind of anxiety that we call chronic anxiety, and that's a sense of threat that is perceived or imagined or interpreted. It's below the surface. Chronic anxiety is usually something we're not really aware of. It's more like background noise. We carry it around with us, and it can be kicked off or activated by any number of experiences or events. And generally, it's tied to our protective promises that we made before we really even consciously knew what we were doing. So that chronic anxiety is the same biochemical reaction as the acute anxiety. And a person or a smell or a song or anything can take us back to a memory when we felt threatened. A memory maybe even when we were hurt, wounded, when our needs were not met. And when that happens, our brain reacts like the past event is happening right now. It says, oh, I remember this. We don't want that to happen again. I need to do something. But the threat isn't real. We aren't actually in danger, even though we react, even though it feels real. We react like it's real. Our heart races or our palms sweat, our muscles tighten. It was really interesting. I was in a small group, and we were talking about this, and somebody was talking about, I don't remember if it was a friend or a relative, but somebody was yelling at them, and they felt really scared because the person was yelling at them. And I said, yeah, it probably felt like they were coming at you with a butcher knife. And the person said, yeah, they were coming at me with a butcher knife. And I said, but they weren't really coming at you with a butcher knife, right? And they said, yes, it was just like they were coming at me with a butcher knife. I said, but they didn't actually have a knife in their hand, right? And it took a few times thinking through it to say, oh, no, they didn't have a knife in their hand. It felt that way. All they were doing was yelling at me, but it felt like I was in physical danger. Throughout our lives, we feel threatened by the behaviors and actions of other people, and sometimes that threat, a lot of times that threat is not real. So we've talked about the really predictable ways that we respond to anxiety before too, but I know that everybody is not always in the room. So just as a review, do you remember the 4 ways that we typically respond when we feel a sense of threat? You don't remember. Run, we distance ourselves. We fight, yeah, we create conflict. What's that? Freeze is a way that we might distance, yeah. Sometimes what we do in churches, we love to triangle. You know, if I have a problem with one person, then I'll go talk to a different person about it instead of the person that I actually need to talk to. Triangling is a thing that we do. The other thing that churches love for people to do is overfunction. Oh my goodness, we love people who overfunction. When we feel a sense of threat, we create conflict, we distance ourselves, we overfunction, or we triangle. And those can look a lot of different ways. What are some ways that we create conflict? I mean, we could physically punch somebody in the nose, but that's not the only way that we create conflict. What are some ways that we create conflict? We shame someone. We use our words. We might be emotionally or verbally abusive to somebody, becoming critical, blaming people when it's not really their fault, just finding somebody to point the finger at is creating conflict. Insisting that our way of seeing things is the only right way to see things is creating conflict. We can't coexist with different opinions. Sometimes we might debate or fight with people, spar with people. That creates conflict. I say we defend ourselves instead of defining ourselves is one way to think about it. And there are lots of ways that might look. What are some ways that we distance? We could literally run away. Somebody said run away. We can physically run away. What other ways do we distance from things when we feel threatened? Yeah. Say it just a little louder. Be aloof. Oh, be rude. Yeah, we might be rude. We mentally check out. Yeah, we might stay in the room, but you're not going to hear anything of substance from us, and you're not going to get any emotion on our faces, right? Distance ourselves. Keep ourselves busy. Workaholics are often distancing from something else they don't want to deal with, yeah? We use jargon. We'll distance by getting really specific with our language and using words that other people may not quite understand. Yeah, there are lots of ways that we distance. What about overfunctioning? Do you understand what overfunctioning is? What are some examples of overfunctioning? Yeah, keeping yourself busy. A lot of times maybe busy with things that we don't need to do for other people. Sometimes when we do things that other people could do for themselves, it's overfunctioning. Sometimes when we give advice that people didn't ask for, that's overfunctioning. When we worry about other people's decisions, not even making the decisions for them, but just spending all of our time worrying about what that other person is deciding to do with their life when we know what they really ought to be doing, that's overfunction. That's not in our scope of work to manage other capable adults' lives. Sometimes we have responsibility for some other people's lives for a period of time, and that's not overfunctioning, that's just responsible parenting. Talking more than we listen can be overfunctioning. And whenever somebody's overfunctioning, somebody else is letting them do it by underfunctioning. So some of the ways we let people overfunction is when we don't take responsibility for our own stuff. We give our word to things and then don't follow through and just expect that somebody else is going to pick it up. Not always even intentionally, but sometimes we float along without direction because somebody else is overfunctioning for us. Last one was triangling. So we've got conflict, distancing, overfunctioning, and triangling. Obviously, if we talk to somebody that's not the person we really need to talk to, that's triangling. What are some other things we do that might be triangling? Sometimes our prayers become triangling, yeah. I mean, a lot of times we want a prayer for peace, or we want a prayer for courage so that we can go back into a situation, but sometimes our prayers wind up being, God, please take care of this thing, because I don't want to deal with it. We might use our faith sometimes as a way of triangling and not being responsible in our lives. Social media is a way of triangling. Politics, maybe that's overfunctioning too, I don't know. Yeah, but we use social media, we talk about things, we offload our anxiety about things onto other people, whether it's out in cyberspace or one-on-one. Sometimes we take too much interest in other people's problems. And none of those are really good or bad things. They're just things that we do as human beings. And sometimes we might need to do those things if we want to live into our values. If we want to create a more just world, we might need to create some conflict with unjust systems. There might be times when we need to step away from a situation consciously so that we have a chance to ground ourselves and reflect and then come back in mindfully. There are lots of times that you use me to triangle. And if we're a healthy triangle, it's an opportunity to talk to another human being so that you can go back into a situation and be the person that you want to be, show up the way that you want to in that situation. We need that feedback from other people sometimes. So these are not necessarily unhealthy things. It's when we do them automatically without connecting to our values, without connecting to our inner wisdom, that they become destructive. And it's kind of like the image on the cover of your order of service, where you see the spider web with the little water droplets. Each of us is like one of those little water droplets, and when we get anxious and we start vibrating, we're going to vibrate the whole web. We're going to start moving in a way that affects everything around us. Anxiety is kind of contagious. We catch each other's anxiety, either because we dump it on each other or because we just kind of get the impression that something is wrong and we start getting anxious about that. Anxiety moves through our bodies, and it moves through the bodies of our congregation, our families, our workplaces, any organization that we're a part of. If you've ever been in a justice organization, you know that there are moments when anxiety just moves through a room. And if Walter Brueggemann is right, frightened people cannot move the world toward wholeness, because we are most concerned with protecting ourselves when we are frightened and anxious. So our bodies give us some early warning systems. Our bodies give us some indication that we are about to do something the way that we always do, and that we have a choice. In my body, I get a sensation like a tightness in my shoulders a lot of times, and if I don't pay attention to that, it moves to my throat or my jaw, and I will physically feel it. And that feeling says, oh, you are about to hit send on that email. Maybe you shouldn't. Oh, you are about to do that thing that you always do. Maybe take a step back. So I invite you, you'll have a chance to share this at your tables during the potluck today. But I just invite you to take a moment and think about it now ahead of time. Where do you feel a sense of threat in your body when it happens? Do you feel nauseous? Do you feel it in your shoulders? Do you shake? Is there a burning in your chest? Do you get shallow breathing or a headache? Do you get a lump in your throat, especially when you feel like you need to say something but you don't really know how? Do you start sweating? Does your heart race? What does it physically feel like for you when you feel a sense of threat? And maybe it's an important question because you just feel it so often it seems like it's normal, especially these days. But maybe that is your body saying, oh, you feel threatened by a thing, and I'm letting you know. How do you physically behave when you feel threatened? Are you somebody who rolls your eyes, like just instinctually? Do you cross your arms? Do you shake your head or frown? Do you furrow your brow when you get feeling threatened? Do you start fidgeting? Do you start looking for the way out? Make sure you know your escape plan? Do you lean in and get in people's faces when you feel threatened to make yourself bigger and scarier than the thing that feels scary to you? Do you force a smile when you feel a sense of threat? Pound your fists, slam a door. What do you do verbally? What do you hear yourself doing when you feel threatened? Do you verbally just immediately go to defending yourself? Do you apologize all the time, just instinctually? Do you go on the attack? Do you start explaining things and explaining things and explaining things and explaining things? Do you get louder? Do you interrupt people? Do you curse more when you feel threatened? Do you start labeling or name-calling more? Are you good at really rationalizing and justifying things so that your behavior makes sense after the fact? What do you do? Because if we can realize these little early warning things that are happening in our bodies and our behaviors, we can take a step back, and we cannot let that anxiety, that sense of threat, walk all over our values. We cannot show up as the embodiment of liberating love if all we're cared about is protecting ourselves. And we may need to help one another because a lot of these habits are old. And so the thing that you'll have a chance to do at your table conversations, if you're willing, is to not only share what is it that it feels like for you. It might feel like something different for everybody at your table, but also what do you need from one another? What do you need from me when you are showing up and you are just shaking with anxiety? Or when your voice is getting louder, what do you need me to do? Because you probably don't need me to meet fire with fire, right? It's not a matter of who can get the loudest. That's not the winner. How do you need me to show up as the embodiment of liberating love for you when you are doing that thing that may not lead us toward a vision of wholeness? In the 1951 movie Alice in Wonderland, the little rabbit says, "Don't just do something, stand there." And this is pretty good advice, because most of the time what we need to do is we need to pause when we realize these things are happening, reconnect with our values, reconnect with our sense of who we want to be in the world, give our brains a chance to kick in. 7 to 9 seconds. 7 to 9 seconds is a long time. Pause and breathe and give our brains a chance to reconnect us to our inner wisdom and our values. And then we can be curious, and we can engage with other people in a way that has integrity. We could go into more detail about that, but we will have the opportunity in the weeks ahead to think about those things. I just want to name that this takes practice. It takes disciplined practice to become a less anxious presence. And it takes courageous action to manage ourselves, to step back for a moment and observe things clearly and choose to respond based on our life-affirming values and our principles, and to recalibrate our focus to our vision of a world made whole and all her people one. When we're experiencing reactive people, we might remember that explaining and justifying and defending and withdrawing and blaming is probably not what they need. Sometimes we are the people who seem like we have a butcher knife in our hands. Even when we don't, we are that to other human beings sometimes. And we may need to be willing to say, I'm not threatening you right now. I'm not a threat. Let's do this together. How can we be connected? Our mindful, centered response can create the space that people need to connect back to their own inner wisdom and sense of safety. Why are we talking about anxiety? Why am I spending all of this time today thinking about the ways that we can be people of faith and manage our anxiety better? The world, that's one thing, just the world, just all the things, headlines. But here, we have big conversations and lots of ideas and opinions and lots of priorities. And all of us as individuals can feel really anxious that our voice is going to get lost. And we don't have to. We're going to create space for everyone's voice. And we want to create the kind of space where we can be mindful of our community and what we are together with one another. And so the way that we show up is going to be really important. Not that it hasn't been. It's going to continue to be really important. And so I invite you to think about the wondrous love available to us in this community as we sing together. What wondrous love is this? It is hymn number 18 in the gray us in this community as we sing together. What wondrous love is this? It is hymn number 18 in the gray hymnal. Words about the power of our connection and the deep friendships that we can cultivate here together. I invite you to rise, embody your spirit as we raise our voices together.
What
Just a few things before we head downstairs and share a meal together. First, I want to remind you that the auction is coming up. There are signs in various places around the building, and a lot of them have a QR code that you can scan if you want to donate something to the auction. Please take advantage of that lovely form if you have something that you think would be a meaningful contribution. And even if you don't know that if it will be meaningful, it probably would be meaningful to somebody. So I encourage you to check it out and save that date. I also want to remind you that we have these blue mugs now in coffee hour. We have a limited number of them because they are for people who want to share and welcome people to this community. So some places have a different color mug for visitors, and that can be problematic when you see somebody off in a corner with a different color mug and nobody's talking to them. But what we want to do is encourage people who are new to look for folks with the blue mugs, because those are people who have self-identified as eager to talk to you today and to welcome you and to let you know all about our space. You do not always have to choose a blue mug if you choose one on any given Sunday. You can pick one Sunday and leave it for somebody else the next Sunday. It's okay. There will be some people with blue mugs in our potluck today, so if you see one of those folks sitting at a table, they are open and welcome to make space for you. So watch for those. In the manner of potluck instructions, I will just remind you that if you put something in a place when you came in, whether it was in the fridge or on a table or something in the fellowship hall, it will be there waiting for you to take it back out to people. We don't have a crew of folks managing the potluck. You are the crew of folks managing the potluck. There are signs on tables that say where salads and desserts and side dishes and mains and all of that stuff go. So I just encourage you, if you brought something today, make sure that it's in the place where you want it to be. And we will do a little bit of cleanup at the end, but also I know that Michael needs to wipe tables down, so there's not quite as much cleanup at the end as we might like. But stick around and make sure that if there are a few things to do, that you can be a part of caring for your community in that way as well. Oh, and I know the email said that we're not going to have a program, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sabbatical and the future facilities survey results and the upcoming focus groups and how all of these kinds of things and a justice initiative, all of these things tie in together and they're related to one another. And so I want to have a little bit of conversation with you about that, probably around dessert time. And I want to be able to introduce Glenn Wagner when we're down there. Glenn will be staying for potluck today, and you'll be seeing a lot of Glenn in the weeks ahead. So I want to make sure you get to know Glenn as soon as possible. So much happening here. So I leave you with these additional words from Thich Nhat Hanh. Every time we practice mindful living, we plant healthy seeds and strengthen the healthy seeds already in us. Healthy seeds function similarly to antibodies. When a virus enters our bloodstream, our body reacts, and antibodies come and surround it, take care of it, and transform it. This is true with our psychological seeds as well. If we plant wholesome, healing, refreshing seeds, they will take care of the negative seeds without our asking them. To succeed, we need to cultivate a good reserve of refreshing seeds. May we do that cultivation with and for one another. Amen, and blessed be.
And if you would please join me with our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
to whom I confess